Namaskar, hello and welcome to CIET NCERT's special live phone-in program of Nishtha 2.0 for secondary stage. My name is Tanvi Khurana and let's just understand what is Nishtha. So Nishtha is the national initiative for school heads and teachers' holistic advancement. And every month we discuss certain courses. Last month, the month of September, we discussed course number 4, 5 and 6. And this month, we took course number 7, 8 and 9. Today, we are talking about course number 9 titled Vocational Education. And we have two experts with us. Let's meet them. We have the Joint Director from PSS, Central Institute of Vocational Education. He is Professor Rajesh P. Khambayat. Welcome, sir.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening, sir. We also have the Head of Curriculum Development and Evaluation Center, PSS, Central Institute of Vocational Education. He is Professor Vinay Swaroop Mehrotra. Welcome, sir.
Good evening and namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. So our experts will be more than happy to answer all your queries, all your questions regarding vocational education. If you have any, please feel free to send us through our YouTube channel NCERT Official. In the live chat box, write down your questions, queries and share them with us. We are here till 7 o'clock and towards the end of the session, we'll be taking your questions. So stay with us, don't miss this session. And please share them, and you're watching us live on PME Vidya channels as well. If you want to call us, then our number is 8800 440 559. If you have not watched the earlier sessions, course number 7 or 8 or the earlier courses, then please watch it on NCERT Official, our YouTube channel. So let's begin with this discussion on vocational education. But before that, I would request Rajesh sir to just introduce this course or have a few words with our audience. Sir, over to you.
We are so pleased to have you today on this online discussion on a very important topic, that is on vocational education. Friends, all you know that India is one of the second largest country in the world with a population of 1.32 billion. You also know that India is also having the median age of 27.9. That includes the second youngest country in the world. But at the same time, when you look at these numbers, you will be surprised to know in India, only 5% of the Indian workforce between the age of 19 to 24 has received any formal education. If you look at the other developed countries in the world, you will be happy to know that a country like Denmark, 50% of its workforce is already received the formal vocational education and training. Whereas in USA it is 52%, in Germany it is 75%, and a country like South Korea, 96% of its population has already received the formal vocational education and training. I think these numbers highlight that we need to increase and enhance the outreach of vocational education and training in our country. As far as Indian scenario is concerned, as far as Indian industries are concerned, as per one estimate, it is said that by 2022, around 400 million workforce will be required by the Indian industry in different sectors. Friends, you all know Government of India has recently released the National Education Policy. And this National Education Policy exclusively highlights the importance of integrating vocational education along with the general education. It also highlights the specific target which we need to attain through the vocational education. The policy mentioned that by 2025, 50% of the learners are going to be exposed either through school education or higher education to the vocational education. And second important target is the gross enrollment ratio. The students who are enrolled in vocational education will also be included while arriving at the gross enrollment ratio. Now, as we integrate vocational education, it will start with a very young age, that is from classes 6 to 8, by introducing the pre-vocational education from classes 6 to 8, and followed by that, quality vocational education will be offered for classes 9 to 12, and the student can continue vocational education even while they are continuing the higher education in the later years of their career. In order to promote vocational education, Government of India has, particularly the Ministry of Education, has launched a scheme known as Samagra Shiksha, an integrated scheme for school education. And this Samagra Shiksha, an integrated scheme for school education, promote introduction of vocational education into the school education. The main purpose of introducing vocational education courses along with general education courses in the school, the main purpose is to enhance the employability of our students, particularly through demand-driven vocational courses. And the second aim, which is very important, is to reduce the dropout rate of our secondary level students in the school education. So friends, as you can see, the vocational education will have two major levels. The first level will be pre-vocational education from classes 6 to 8, and secondly, the vocational education courses will be introduced from classes 9 to 12, depending upon the various occupations and sectors. As far as vocational education is concerned, our institute has designed and formulated a very innovative vocationalization of school education by introducing two major components. The first component is employability skill development, and second is job-specific skill development component. As far as vocationalization of school education is concerned, you will be happy to know for classes 9 to 10, 200 hours are allocated for vocational education in each class, and classes 11 and 12, 300 hours are allocated for vocational education courses. Out of these 200 and 300 hours, 37% of the time is allocated for employability skill, whereas remaining 63% of the time is allocated for the vocation or occupation specific job role skills. Friends, as far as employability skills are concerned, there are 5 major components that we are trying to address. The first one is communication skill, ICT skill, self-management skill, entrepreneurial skill, and most importantly, the green skill have been included as a part of employability skill. Friends, NCERT has developed the learning outcome-based curriculum for the various occupations and various sectors. We have also developed the textbooks along with the employability textbooks. And currently, PSS, Central Institute of Vocational Education, which is a constant unit of NCERT, is working in 17 sectors. And these are all priority sectors of Indian economy, as well as has a huge potential for job employment. So you'll be happy to know that all these learning outcome courses or curriculum are demand driven based on the national occupation standard. And there is an active involvement of industry in formulating the curriculum. And now we also have a good engagement with Sector Skill Council. And we have also standardized the assessment and certification system for as far as vocational education courses are concerned. Currently, there are 27 states and union territories are basically offering vocational education courses, and more than 10,000 schools currently offering vocational education program, and more than 12 lakh students are taking the benefit of vocational education programs. So in order to support all these things, a lot of digital content, digital resources, along with textbooks and other things are made available by our institution. And this is also available on NCERT website, as well as can be accessed through a mobile app known as e-Pathshala of the NCERT. There are a variety of instructional methods that teachers can employ, particularly for teaching the vocational education programs and courses. Particularly this module has been specifically designed to make you understand what is this vocationalization of school education is all about. What is role of you as a vocational teacher in offering vocational courses into the school education? What are the different practices? What are the different instructional methods and technique you can employ for effective implementation of vocational education program? And this module will also help you how to prepare an action plan for effective implementation of the vocational education program. I have my colleague with me, Dr. Mehrotra, who will be giving us more insight about this module, that what you are going to learn through this specific module. Thank you, Tanvi.
Thank you, sir. Mehrotra sir, would you like to add something to what Rajesh sir said?
Thank you, Tanvi. I think what Professor Rajesh Ambayaji has said, that we need to focus on the recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020 with regard to the reimagining of vocational education. So we need to bring about institutional transformations and also individual transformations in terms of building good infrastructure, state-of-the-art technology, and also developing the capacity of the teachers, school leaders, and all other stakeholders of TVET or vocational education training or vocationalization of school education that we are talking about under the Samagra Shiksha. So that is what we need to take forward, and that is why we have developed this kind of module on vocational education for the NISTA secondary. And I'm sure after completing this module, we would be able to aim at building capacity of the teachers as well as the school leaders in effective implementation of the vocationalization of school education. Thank you.
Okay, so sir, would you like to show our viewers this presentation you've made?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be talking about the course 9 on vocational education, which is part of the NISTA secondary modules that the school leaders and teachers have to do. So coming to the first slide, which is about the course information. So the teachers would be able to learn about integration of vocational education with general education. So we have the manuscript of the module, we have transcript of the modules, of the videos that we have included in the module. We have the activities inbuilt into this module so that teachers can actually go through these activities or perform these activities and then learn from those activities which have been included. So the focus of this module is on how we can integrate vocational education with general education, and it will also discuss the modalities adopted for providing opportunities to the students for vocational preparation from grades 9 to 12 under Samagra Shiksha. So if I go to the course overview where the course instructions have been given in the module, so it talks about the modality of the course and also the certification process. So the modality, as we all know, it is an online course, and the learners must go through the course content presented in the form of the videos, textual resources, and a variety of practical activities for course completion. We have also given additional resources for learning beyond the main courses. For example, terms to know. So we have given what are the different terms that every learner should know about. If I give some examples, then it is about what do we mean by skill? What do we mean by competency-based assessment, evaluation? So vocational pedagogy. So all these terms have been included in the additional resources. So I would request all the learners to please also visit the additional resources and learn about these terms and also other aspects which have been given as additional resources. The certification will be like after the learners have acquired 70% of the final assessment would be receiving a certificate of participation, which can be downloaded from the Diksha portal. So if I go to the objectives of this module, so on completion of this module, the learners will be able to explain the meaning of vocationalization of education, describe the historical background and policy recommendations on vocationalization of education in India, describe the initiatives taken for integration of vocational education with general education. They will also be able to comprehend the various components of vocational education for its effective implementation in school under Samagra Shiksha. They would be able to combine general knowledge subjects with general skills and occupation-specific knowledge, skills, and competencies. And finally, they would be able to plan and implement vocational courses in schools. So the course outline is as follows. We have talked about introduction to vocational education, in which we have included the definitions given by the UNESCO and ILO, and also the general understanding of the vocational education. In historical background of vocational education, in India we have talked about the Books Dispatch, the recommendations of the various committees and commissions on vocational education. And also we have talked about the national policy on skill development and entrepreneurship 2015, and also the national education policy 2020, besides the earlier policies, that is of 1968 and 86. So integrating vocational education with academic education, we are focused on this to bring about necessary awareness and also develop the capacity of the teachers in terms of integrating vocational education with academic education. In vocational education under Samagra Shiksha, we have talked about the need for introducing pre-vocational education from grades 6 to 8 and vocational education from grades 9 to 12, as Professor Kambhai has talked about earlier. So in introduction to vocational education, we have elaborated on the purpose of vocational education or vocational education training, which is mainly to support young people in forming their personalities and developing skills which are required for the current and future world of work. So as Professor Kambhai was mentioning, that India is a young nation and we need to skill our youth for the current as well as the future jobs. So we have focused on this, that the purpose of the vocational education is to prepare our young people for the future jobs, and particularly Industry 4.0, where artificial intelligence, coding, big data analytics, smart manufacturing, all these are very important areas where we need to skill our youth. Now coming to vocationalization of education, which actually differs from vocational education or vocational education training, in the sense that the theory and practical skills learning in the latter is directly related to the vocation, with less component of general education. Whereas in the former, that is vocationalization of education, there is more of the general education component than the vocation. And this is what we have done in terms of introducing vocational subject as one of the subject along with the general education from grades 9 to 12, so that at least every child would be able to acquire some skills or the other by opting for these vocational subjects. So we need to also diversify these vocational courses in our schools so that students can make a choice based on these vocationals or vocations that they would like to opt for by opting for these vocational subjects. Now, vocationalization of education, schools refer to those practical subjects in curriculum which are likely to generate among students some basic knowledge and skill and prepare them to think of becoming skilled workers. Now, here it's very important to understand that it's not just about practical training, it's also about on-the-job training, and practical training outside the school. And that is why if you look at the recommendations of the NEP 2020, it has talked about internship programs, apprenticeship training, 10 backless days, so that we can put more emphasis on practical training through the school education. So we need to really develop those kind of linkages with the industry. For example, in agriculture, we can take our students to the poly houses where they can learn about protected cultivation. Similarly, in construction industry, we can take our students to the construction sites where they can see how engineering is being done, engineering drawing is being read by the engineers, and then construction of the building or any other, maybe it can be any other structure which they would be observing that how it is being designed and constructed in that particular area. What are the various factors which are considered before taking a decision that this site should be selected? What materials are to be used? What tools, equipment are to be used? What kind of manpower would be required? So planning as well as the implementation they would be learning when they go to those particular industry or the site where such activities are going on. So when we talk about integration of vocational education with general education, the NEP focuses on vocational education to cater the needs of the 21st century and the new technological demands of the industry. It has recommended the 5+3+4 pattern of pedagogy at the school level. Every child is supposed to learn at least one vocation and be exposed to several more. 50% of the learners shall have vocational exposure through school and higher education by 2025. And there should not be any hard separation between the vocational education and the academic education. So there should not be any difference between the vocational and academic streams. So it talks also of the students' hands-on experience of vocational crafts right from grade 6. So between grade 6 to 8, we need to provide that kind of vocational exposure by involving local craftspersons and experts in the school so that they provide that kind of hands-on experience to us. It also talks about 10 backless days in a year to be implemented during that students will get vocational exposure. So under the Samagra Shiksha, which is from preschool to grade 12, we have to ensure that there is a flexibility and choice of subjects, particularly from grades 9. So students of grade 9 to 12 will receive training in at least one vocation and more if they are interested. The vocational education system in schools will be reintegrated under National Skills Qualifications framework for providing training to the dropouts. So we have a huge number of school dropouts and out of school children who needs vocational education and training. So we need to develop the mechanism of recognition of prior learning, those who are already working in the world of work, to bring them back into the school. We also need to assess the literacy level. And that is why we have now FLN program where we can really help these students to understand the importance of fundamental literacy, numeracy, things like that. So we have a BVOC program which is offered by higher education institutions. And the NEP 2020 has recommended that this BVOC program needs to be expanded in different sectors. It has also recommended the development of the credit-based framework, which will facilitate mobility across general and vocational education. And this work has already been started by the National Council for Vocational Education and Training, and PSSCIVE is very closely involved with the development of this credit framework. So the NEP 2020 has also recommended that a national higher education qualifications framework shall be developed, which will be in sync with the NSQF. And a national committee for integration of vocational education will oversee the efforts of the implementation of it. It has also recommended the inclusion of vocational education in the context of children with disabilities, children with special needs, Divyangs that we call. And then the emphasis should be on recruiting adequate teachers or experts. So what we have done now in vocational education training is that we have adopted the sectoral approach to read. And this has been done for developing these specific skills in the key economic sector, which Professor Kambad was talking about in the 17 sectors in the school education that we have taken up. And we are offering vocational subjects for the job roles in these sectors. So we also need to reduce the gap between the demand and supply of skilled manpower within the labor market. The occupation standards for the job roles in the sector are developed by the Sector Skill Council or other agencies which are then examined and reviewed by the National Skills Qualifications Committee. The qualification packs which contains these NOSes for the various job roles are available on the National Qualifications Register. This is NQR. So I would request the teachers and the heads of the schools and also other stakeholders who are listening to this. Please visit this NQR website and know more about the sectors as well as the job roles which are available on the website. The national occupation standards are divided into modules or units with specific learning outcome statements in the vocational curriculum. So based on these national occupation standards, we develop the learning outcome based curriculum at PSSCIVE. So now coming to the National Skills Qualifications Framework, which we have elaborated in the module. So this NSQF, which was introduced in December 2013, is organized as a series of levels of learning outcomes, which are arranged in ascending order from level 1 to 10. And these levels provide the reference point for qualifications, allowing for comparison and providing a reference point for review of qualifications. And these level depends on the complexity of learning. That is, 1 is the least and 10 is the most complex. Beginning from grade 1, the level 1 is there. Then there are, from level 1 to 4, we have introduced in the school education. Then there is diploma, which is pegged at the level 5. Then the advanced diploma, which is pegged at the level 6. And then we have other levels for the degree, that is from undergraduate to postgraduate degrees. Now coming to the vocationalization of education or vocationalization of school education under Samagra Shiksha, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an integrated scheme for school education extending from preschool to grade 12. So the vision of this Samagra Shiksha is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education from preschool to senior secondary school in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goal for Education. And under this Samagra Shiksha, we are having work education, which was earlier known as work experience or socially useful productive work, which would be offered from grades 1 to 5. Then pre-vocational education is to be introduced from grades 6 to 8, and vocational education is to be offered from grades 9 to 12. Now coming to the various dimensions of planning and implementation of vocationalization of education in schools. Now this is very important aspect which the heads of the schools as well as the teachers have to consider, is about selection of schools in the vocational schools. The states have to see actually the availability of the industry or sites for on-the-job training before selecting the schools for introduction of the vocational courses. Because this is very important in terms of providing practical training with the help of the experts from the industry, which could be, as I mentioned earlier, can be an agriculture farm or an agriculture industry. So The proximity between the schools and the industry should be the priority for selection of the schools. Care has to be taken to provide equal opportunities of access to girls and children with special needs. State-of-the-art classroom come lab and workshops are to be done. So I'm happy to inform you that at the demonstration multipurpose school here at Bhopal in our campus, we have developed the state-of-the-art classroom come lab for retail, IT, ITS, and also for the beauty and wellness. So these are the model labs that we have created, and we expect that all the states and UTs would be also setting the state-of-the-art classroom come lab for these. And some very good labs can be seen in many of the states now, where this kind of vocational subjects have been introduced under the National Skill Qualifications framework. So, indicative list of tools, equipment and materials have been provided by the PSSCIVE in the curriculum. The course curriculum you can download from our website, psscive.ac.in. And this curriculum we have developed in consultation with the respective sector skill council and the experts in the domain. Now, coming to the student support services, which is very important aspect when we are planning and implementing the vocational education in schools. We need to also consider this aspect in terms of ensuring participation of children in vocational education, collaboration with parents and community-based organizations. The schools should really go to these organizations, community-based organizations for their support. They should also approach the local experts in industry, NGOs, voluntary organizations, before actually implementing the vocational education program in their schools. Because they will get a lot of ideas from these people, and they would also be extending their support in terms of implementation. Conducting enrollment drives and orientation of children and parents about the various aspects of vocational education. This is a very important aspect in changing the mindset of the parents as well as the children towards the vocational education. So in National Education Policy 2020, this has been emphasized that we need to do away with the social stigma attached to the vocational education, as it is thought to be taken by students who are economically backward or intellectually lower than the students who go into the academic stream. So we need to actually change the mindset of the people at large towards vocational education. We need to also focus on those belonging to the special and marginalized groups, not delineating them in terms of that they should only take the vocational education, but encouraging them to take vocational education and learn those skills which will help them to come out from this kind of social stigma that they have to go through. Now, the skill-based aptitude tests also we need to administer, and I'm happy to inform you that PSSCIVE has come out with an online vocational interest inventory for grade 8 students and skill-based aptitude test for grade 10 students. Career guidance and counseling is very important before a student takes up a course or a vocational course in school. So a very robust system of career guidance and counseling needs to be developed in the school, where experts in the domain can be invited. You can even invite entrepreneurs to your school to guide your students in terms of how they can set up an enterprise or a business or an industry, or they can go in for a startup. So these are the various aspects of student support services that the school needs to provide. Now, coming to the learning resources. So as I mentioned earlier, that we have come out with the learning outcome based curriculum for vocational courses in grades 9 to 12, which comprises of module on employability and vocational skills, which Professor Kambath has already talked about, which has 5 modules. One is on communication skills, second is on self-management, third is on ICT skills, fourth on entrepreneurship skills. And for the first time, we have introduced green skills, which is the 5th module of the employability skills. Now, besides the curriculum, we have developed a training package, which includes student textbooks, multimedia packages, and e-learning materials. We have also developed the slide presentations, which are available on our website. So teachers can download these slides and use them for online teaching during this COVID pandemic. They can use the videos which are available on the PSSCIVE, YouTube, official, and also the website of the PSSA. They can download these videos and use them for teaching students. Now, coming to the factors which influence the vocational education field. So there are various factors which actually influence vocational education. Now, what are these? Stakeholder partnership and participation. As I mentioned earlier, that while selecting a school, you need to see whether there are industries around, whether there are community organizations the school in terms of implementing the vocational education. Availability of trained vocational teachers. More green technologies, green jobs, green skills, and for that we need to ensure that whatever course that we are introducing in our schools should have this kind of element of sustainable development. For example, vermicompost production we can introduce in our schools from grade 6 to 8. This will help in utilizing the biodegradable waste and converting it into compost, which can then be utilized in setting up a nursery in the schools. So there would be a whole cycle of activities which can be designed around certain theme. So we can have different themes listed in our school. So every school should have a vision in terms of identifying those themes and organizing those activities in the schools from grade 6 to 8 for vocational exposure and from grades 9 to 12 for vocational preparation. Technology, automation and digitalization is the buzzword now, and there are a lot of opportunities related to Industry 4.0. So we need to identify those opportunities, particularly the new business opportunities that are influencing the world of work and would be very important in terms of transition from school to work. So industry-led demand for skilled workers need to be considered, and this is a very important factor in terms of reducing the gap between the demand and supply of skilled workers. Growth of industries or employment opportunities need to be assessed from time to time. And also we need to see, like I'll give you one example of photography. Now photography has changed from the one where we used to take printouts of the photographs to digital photography where we can do a lot of things using softwares and also the VFX technology. So we need to train our students in the latest developments in the sector or the industry so that when they get into the world of work, they are employable. Now, employable pass-outs would be able to gain entry into the world of work very easily. So we need to focus on employability. Now, coming to the practical training. So practical training can be done in labs or workshops. It can be done through internship or on-the-job training. It can also be done in the industry, ITIs, polytechnics, community colleges, hospitals, farms and all. Then wherever the industries are not available, the schools can set up their own production cum training centers. For example, automobile workshop can be set up by a school for providing services, cleaning and maintenance services to the general public, through which they can earn something from there by providing that kind of service, which can be, that fund can be circulated for development of the infrastructure facilities, or setting up more labs and workshops, or buying more tools and equipment for that production cum training centers. Now, coming to the assessment and certification of vocational students, performance criteria or standards are to be met by the candidates. So it's very important that the teachers are aware of the performance criteria on the basis of which they are going to do the assessment. The competencies acquired by the learners are assessed and certified by the central and state examination boards along with the concerned sector standards. So there are two certificates which are given to the vocational students. One is the NSQF certificate, the other one is board certificate. External assessment and evaluation is done in grade 10th and 12th, and written and practical assignments are given. And there's also a provision for the student portfolio from grades 9 to 12. And this is a very important aspect that every teacher needs to adopt for developing that kind of portfolio, which even after passing out, the student can show to the potential employer for gaining employment or gaining entry into the job. So there's also a provision for the monitoring evaluation. The monitoring online mechanism through project management system PMS has been developed. This monitoring is being done through Prabandh portal, and online submission of monthly progress reports on Prabandh system is being done. Vertical mobility of vocational students is a very important aspect, and a lot needs to be done in terms of providing avenues for the students to go into higher education. Now, strengthening the vertical progression in vocational education through continued access to vocational courses offered as diploma, advanced diploma, and degree courses is to be done. 3 years Bachelor of Vocational Education with the integration of skills related to a profession and appropriate content of general education with exit points for diploma, advanced diploma, and degree. It's already being implemented, and that needs to be expanded. School Education Department, in coordination with the Department of Higher and Technical Education of the states or UTs, will create more avenues for vertical mobility. It's being done, but then a lot more is to be done in order to ensure that every child gets an opportunity for horizontal as well as vertical mobility. So, for example, Maharashtra has provided 25% reservation for class 10 vocational pass-outs in ITIs and 15% reservation in polytechnics. Himachal Pradesh provides 10% extra weightage to grade 12 vocational pass-outs for admission into pre-work courses being run in the state. Now coming to the apprenticeship training. So after completion of the vocational subject, a student or a pass-out can get into the apprenticeship training, which is an agreement between a person who wants to learn a skill in an industry or organization. So the apprentices are taught the latest application processes and methodologies in their respective field of work, and also learn soft skills, work culture, ethics, and organization behavior while undergoing the training. There is an Apprentices Act 1961. This was enacted with the objective of regulating the program of training apprentices in the industry by utilizing the facilities available therein for imparting on-the-job training. So there are 4 categories of apprentices, namely trade apprentices, graduate, technician, and technician vocational. Now the period of training, it actually varies from 6 months to 4 years, and the minimum age for being engaged as an apprentice is 14 years, and then for apprenticeship in designated trades related to hazardous industries is 18 years. So there's a difference in terms of non-hazardous and hazardous industries for entry into the apprenticeship training. So the Apprentices Act 61 was again amended in 2014 to include optional fields. and the apprentices are paid a stipend amount during the training. So this is about National Apprenticeship Training Scheme, a one-year training program for equipping technically or vocationally qualified youth with practical knowledge and skills required in the field of work is available. There are 126 subject fields for graduate diploma or diploma students for which training is provided. Now coming to the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme, which was launched in August 2016 to promote apprenticeship in the country by providing financial incentives, incorporating technology and advocacy support. So this was, so the key features of the scheme are linkages with the other schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kaushal Yojana. So this was all about the various dimensions of vocational education in schools, or the vocationalization of education in schools that we are doing. So this is the summary where you can see we have covered all these aspects that we have been talking about. And we have also mentioned about the various agencies, organizations or institutions which are the key stakeholders in the implementation of vocationalization of school education. Like for example, National Skill Development Corporation, National Council for Vocational Education Training. Then we have the state boards, the central boards, and the Directorate of School Education. So there are different agencies which are playing an important role in the implementation of vocationalization of school education. We have also mentioned about the models of vocational education training in India, which is formal, informal, and non-formal vocational education training. We have also talked about the National Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Policy 2015, which has emphasized skills training and retraining, leveraging technology, quality assurance framework, reducing skill gap between demand and supply, promotion of industry engagement through public-private partnership, promotion of apprenticeship training. And we have also mentioned in the summary about the recommendations of the National Education Policy, which is by 2025, at least 50% of the students should have vocational exposure. There should not be any hard separation between vocational education, general education. Social status elevation of vocational education needs to be done. Then hub and spoke model of vocational education and training is to be implemented. Inclusive vocational education is to be implemented. Lok Vidya, that is promotion of indigenous knowledge through the vocational education, is to be promoted in schools as well as in the higher education. Credit-based framework for vertical and horizontal mobility is to be implemented. Introduction of pre-vocational education from grades 6 to 8. Then integration of vocational education with general education from grades 9 to 12. And we have mentioned the learning outcome-based curriculum, which is based on the National Occupation Standards. And as we mentioned earlier, that employability skills and job-specific skills are being imparted through these vocational courses. So thank you very much for this patient hearing. I now request Tanvi to take over, and we have some question answer session.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. And after watching this session, you gave us a brief idea about what is course 9 all about. So I'll come to the questions. We have some viewers, and the very first question is Rupali is asking, what is vocational education? Can you not define it, but say it in very simple words, as in the layman's language? Would you like to answer that?
Okay. You know, in a very simple way, you can say vocational education is an education which basically prepare oneself for the world of work, maybe for the employment, for the self-employment, or for any specific occupation. Okay? So this will be as simple as definition of vocational education we can think about.
Okay, That makes
So
total
now,
sense.
in pedagogical terms, if we say that pedagogy, when we define, it's an art and science of teaching. When we talk about general education. But when it comes to vocational education, it is art, science, and craft of teaching, which our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi ji, has talked about, the craft. He talked about the Nai Talim, or the basic education, through Charkha. So he was basically emphasizing on the practical aspects. And we have to make our children productive. And this has been elaborately dealt with in the Kothari Commission's report, where it has categorically mentioned that we need to introduce the work experience program in our schools, so that students, they don't just learn about theory, but also emphasize on the learning aspect of the practice. So the practice makes a man perfect. That's the common phrase. So it's all about practical, doing practical things.
Well said, sir. So I'm sure Rupali now has got the definition of vocational education. Let's move forward. We have one of the viewers, Oken, and he's asking, what is the role of teachers in vocational education? Would you kindly tell us some important parameters of vocational education?
You know, when we talk about Samagra Shiksha, and particularly when we talk about vocationalization of school education, please understand that the most important element of implementation of the scheme is the vocational teacher. He is the most important player to realize what this scheme is trying to achieve. So first of all, understand you have, as a teacher, the most important role to play. If you make it more simpler to make you understand, I feel the first role of vocational teacher can be creating awareness. As I mentioned to you earlier, only 5% of the people have formal vocational education. The second important thing is, very few people have really achieved the formal vocational education training. And in order to promote the importance of vocational education, awareness is very, very important. That includes, parents, it includes the young students. So this is the first role I feel the vocational teacher can definitely need to play. Second thing is, as you know, India is a growing economy. We are aiming for 5 trillion economy. And for reaching that particular target, we need competent and skilled manpower. And this skilled manpower, the largest supplier will come through vocational education. So the second role, I believe, is the advocacy role. Because until and unless we promote the advocacy of vocational education, many students will not be able to understand its importance in their career, in their professional life. And that's why the second role is advocacy. The third role I feel is assessment. How the certification, the progressive assessment, certification, all those things can be taken up. I think this is very, very important. And the third one is, to make this vocational education available to the students. Inclusive, we talk about equitable vocational education. And I think the role of the teacher is very, very important to ensure that all this, what we are trying to achieve through this national education policy, really reaches to the masses, to the students. And there I feel, to make this is available, vocational education, which is inclusive, which is equitable, which is a quality, I think here comes the role of vocational teachers.
Okay, all right. So my next question is that kindly provide the important and useful web links or websites. This has been asked by our viewer, SP Kaushik.
Okay. The first web link I will definitely write is www.pssscive.ac.in. So it is our institute, Pandit Sundarlal Sharma, Central Institute of Vocational Education. And all this what we have talked today, whether it comes to learning outcome-based curriculum, whether it is employability textbook, whether it is student textbook, flip books, PowerPoint presentation, video lecture, everything is available on our website. It is also available on NCERT website. So www.ncert.in, you can type it and then you will get all the details. In another way, I would suggest you that one can use the mobile app, ePathshala, which is available on Google Play Store. You can download it, and all this content will be very well easily available to all of you. Viewers, I also would like to tell you, all our content will be very soon available on Diksha portal. So we are all working towards it, and all our digital content will be made available to the largest society through our Diksha portal. So these are some of the websites I think can be very useful to you. In addition to you, there are many organizations who are associated with vocational education, like NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation, then Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. So, and then there are many other schemes which are launched by Government of India, and this you can Google it, and all this information will be available to the student for more information related to skill development, related to vocational education in the country.
Okay, all right. So our viewer, I am sure you have understood these websites. These are all valid and verified websites, so you can operate these and understand about vocational education a lot more. Let's come to the NEP 2020. So, would you like to recommend, would you like to highlight the major recommendations of NEP 2020 with regard to vocationalization of school education?
Okay. I think this is a very important question you have asked regarding national education policy. I told you earlier that National Education Policy 2020 has brought a renewed focus on vocational education. And it says by reimagining vocational education. So the first highlight, I would say that now vocational education will be integrated with general education. So all the students who are studying in school education and higher education will be exposed to vocational education. So vocational education will be integrated across the education system. So this is the first highlight I think will be of great interest to every one of us. Now, in order to realize this integration of vocational education with academic education, the policy advocate of establishment of skill laboratories. Because the student should get hands-on training, practical experience, using tools, machinery, and for that one, in a hub and spoke model, skill laboratories will be set up in India at different locations, in different districts. This laboratory will be there, and the nearby schools can have access to this state-of-art facility to get hands-on training and also to get the exposure for vocational education. Second important highlight is that, so far, vocational education was always offered by individual institutions or individual schools. But this policy advocates about collaboration. It says that the institutions, the schools who are offering vocational education must connect with the local institutions like ITI, Polytechnic, hospitals, NGOs, industries, business. So that, students get more opportunity for industrial visit, for hands-on training, practical training, and that's why for quality vocational education, engagement of industry through collaboration is very, very important. The third highlight of the policy is that now the vocational education will be demand-driven. So it will be based on the mapping of the local opportunities, what the local industry really needs, what kind of manpower they are looking for it. And based on that, the vocational courses will be designed and they will be offered and delivered to the student so that the gainful employment is available in the vicinity of the schools and all that. The third important, which Dr. Mehrotra also highlighted, was pre-vocational education. I think it is for the first time the policy strongly advocate that pre-vocational education should be introduced. And the pre-vocational education will be offered from classes 6 to 8. there will be no formal examination for this pre-vocational education. Rather, it will be fun-based learning activity throughout the year. The student will enjoy the learning activities through, art, craft, carpentry, then pottery making and all that. And in addition to that, the policy says 10 bagless day informal internship. So during these 10 days, the young student will be attached, or they will be visiting to the local industry. They will be attached to local artisan, craftsman, technician and all that. What is the purpose? The purpose of all this activity is to make make the student aware what are the different occupations in the world of, what people really do for living, what kind of skills are required to perform various occupations, what is the importance of the skill. All these things are going to be very, very important. And I believe introduction of pre-vocational education will be a game changer while we look towards vocational education. Because these experiences, when the children undergo, they themselves feel it. And when they share these experiences with the parents, I'm sure the perception, the attitude towards our vocational education is definitely going to change in the coming year. So these are some of the highlights. In addition to that, the student can have mix and match. With general education, student can have soft skill training, vocational education, art, craft, all those things will be there. Now this I talk to you about students who are in the regular schools. But in India, there are many students who finish their schooling through open schooling. So through open and distance also, the vocational courses will be offered. Even higher education institution will be allowed to offer vocational education program, including soft skill training program, either on their own or they can collaborate with the local institutions or industries and they can offer these programs to benefit the students. The 3-year program, the 4-year integrated bachelor program will also include the vocational education program. And the current BVOC program will continue to work as it was working on that. So, higher education institution will also offer certificate courses, long-term programs, leading to the skills, including soft skill program. Another highlight, which will be of some interest to many of us, will be Lok Vidya. There are many traditional knowledge which has been developed in India itself. Maybe art, maybe music, maybe craft. And all these things will also be made available to the student through vocational education. And for that one, a lot of mapping will be done. As Professor Mehrotra said, there will be higher education qualification framework will also be developed, so that proper mapping and vertical mobility of the vocational graduates will also be ensured and all that. Last important highlight I would say is the Incubation Center. So in higher education institution now, incubation centers will be established so that student will be encouraged to go for employment, self-employment, startup, entrepreneurship as a career. So all these things will be available through Incubation Center. How to identify business opportunity, how to do market scanning, how to prepare project proposal, how to approach financial institutions, how to launch your enterprise. Even if you face any difficulty, there will be guidance, counseling, mentoring will be available for the student through this Incubation Center. So this is going to play a very, very important. A lot of students are having mobility within India and within region and outside the region. And to help our students for mobility across the region, our standards, the occupational standard, the Indian standards will be mapped with international standards, which are maintained by ILO, International Labour Organization. So this mapping of our standard with international standard will be great help to our students, particularly who are going to beyond the regions and all that. So these are some of the highlight, and the last important highlight of our policy is basically monitoring mechanism. Earlier policy also talked about vocational education, but this policy talked about a proper monitoring. So there will be an online portal will be created, and all the data for all those students who have enrolled into the vocational education will be monitored, and so that it will also help us that how far we are able to achieve our target, what are the gaps, what are the things we need to do, what kind of interventions are needed, so that we realize the target of 50% of the learners to reach through vocational education by 2025. I think these are some of the important highlights, I believe, related to our vocational education.
Okay, these are really great, sir. Sounds very interesting, and I think that our next generation, they are going to be very lucky. They have a lot of options in vocational education. Sir, you mentioned the time duration for certain courses or programs. I would like to ask that, is there any fixed duration of the vocational course for grade 9, 10 and even 11 and 12? Are they same? Are they different?
Malhotra, you may ask this, sir.
So, in 9th and 10th, we have 200 hours each of the curriculum designed for that purpose. So after completing 10th, a student would be able to do 400 hours of theory and practical in that particular vocational subject. So I'll give you one particular example in beauty and wellness sector. So we have a job role called assistant beauty therapist, which is of 400 hours across 9th and 10th. Then we have a beauty therapist job, which is in 11th and 12th standard. And this is for 300 hours each in 11th and 12th. So that comes to 600 hours in 11th and 12th. So a total of 1,000 hours of training or vocational education a student would be getting across grades 9 to 12 in beauty and wellness sector. So that is the kind of provision that we have made across all other sectors, that is agriculture, IT, LTS, construction, plumbing, logistics, tourism and hospitality, like that. So we have also designed the curriculum in terms of providing vertical progression, keeping in view the level of understanding of the child at that grade.
Okay. So you're saying that when the grades are increasing, even the number of hours are getting increased for different
Yes.
courses. Okay.
So with an exit at class 10 and class 12.
Okay. So if I ask you about the present context, how many schools are implementing vocationalization of education?
No, currently more than 13,000 schools are currently offering vocational education programs. And if you see the spread, 27 states and union territories are offering vocational education program. And you'll be very happy to know that 13 lakh students, 1.3 million students are taking the benefit of vocationalization of school education program, and that too in 17 sectors, and for more than 60 to 70 job roles, for which our institute has already developed the textbooks and the curriculum.
That is really a huge number, sir. But if I'll ask the role of PSSCIVE Bhopal in implementing the vocational courses in various schools in various states, what will that be?
You know, there are multiple roles our institute is actually involved. I would say the first role which we are performing is the advisory role, basically, advisory role. So anything related to vocational education in school education, our institute is always engaged in providing the necessary advice, whether it comes to Ministry of Education or whether to support the state governments, particularly how the scheme should be effectively implemented. So this is the first role which we are trying to do as far as vocational education is concerned. The second role PSSCIVE is actively engaged is the developmental role. So all the development of textbook, development of learning outcome-based curriculum, development of instructional resources, all are done by PSSCIVE. The third very important role, I would say, for effective implementation of vocational education we do is through training intervention. You know, we organize a range of programs throughout the year. The first program we normally call it as orientation program. And this particular program is mainly focused on the key functionaries related to vocational education system, particularly at the state level, whether at the director level, principals, headmasters, district level officer, education officers. Those are all very important functionaries at the state level. So we orient them and making them understand what is vocational education is all about. What is the importance of vocational education for us? And you as an administrator, you as a policy maker, you as a decision maker, how you can effectively implement vocational education in your state, and all these things we covered in the orientation program. The second very important and very popular program what we do is the vocational pedagogy program. This is basically to prepare the teachers for effective transaction into the classroom, for effective implementation of the vocational education in the schools. So this program is basically focused on that one. We also conduct training program for content updating, where the teachers are basically reskilling or upskilling, you can think about it, where their content knowledge is updated with the changes in the technology, with the changes in the curriculum and all that. So they had updated with the recent development in their field. So this is another program we do it. And in addition to this short-term intervention, we also run a one-year diploma program in vocational education and training. It is in distance come contact mode program. And this particular long-term program intervention mainly prepares the resource pool for the states. As you know, National Education Policy advocate of 50% of the learners to be connected through vocational education by 2025. So we need a large number of people for effective management, planning, and implementation of the scheme. And we need a good handful people of resource person at the state level, and that's why this particular program we are doing. In addition to that, we are also involved in the research activity. So policy level research, action researches in the upcoming front and upcoming areas of vocational education is also conducted by our institution. And last but not the least, we also organize the regional consultation program, national level consultation meeting, where all the stakeholders are brought so that all the priorities, the action agendas can be decided, the strategic interventions which are required. Now, in the light of national education policy, these are all formulated and finalized during this national and regional level consultation. You'll be also happy to know we publish a journal in Indian Journal of Vocational Education. And so the upcoming priorities, the beautiful, research-based articles are published by our institution through this particular journal to promote the recent developments and the advocacy for vocational. So this is how PSSCIVE is involved. Last but not the least, a lot of our work is involved digitalization of vocational education. So a lot of digital content we are now currently developing, and you will be happy to know, viewers, our upcoming books, particularly on vocational education, will be all QR based. So we are using the latest technology for the new age student, and they will be benefited with this QR coded vocational textbook in the coming years, coming months.
Okay, that sounds really great, sir, and that's one of the benefits of staying in the 21st century. So, regarding this only, I would like to ask you that if I talk about a decade ago, there's a major difference between how we are dealing with vocational education, how we are handling it. Now we're talking about employability skills or vocational skills and even domain-specific skills. So how far have we come, from maybe 10 years ago till now? What's the difference?
We have come a long way, I would say, when we talk about employability skills. Today, the notion about employability skill is changing very fast. Sometimes we call it as a soft skill, sometimes we call it as a generic skill, horizontal skills, essential skills, transversal skill. There are many connotations which can be assigned to this employability skill. Basically, these are human skills, which makes individual acceptable and easily fit in for the requirement of the world of work or for the specific occupations. And this is changing very fast. Now, particularly with the change in the technology, the conventional skills are diminishing. The non-cognitive skills are emerging very high. And that's why the employability skill is very, very important now. Rather, I would say industries are looking for employability skills more importantly than the other set of skills. So I would say for a job market, employability quotient is very, very important compared to the generic set of skills. So a lot of changes are happening. And as Dr. Mehrotra mentioned about Industry 4.0. So Industry 4.0, where technology is the important interface in all our operations. So we need a lot of creativity, a lot of innovativeness, problem solving, decision making, team working. All these things are becoming very, very important for us. And so the definition, the way employability skill we had in the last decade and now this decade is entirely different. So focus is more on creativity, focus is more on innovations. These are become the priority for the industries as well as for the world of work.
And I'm sure this will grow with the time coming. Okay, so we have got last 2 minutes left, but before wrapping up this entire session, I would like to ask you some tips, some suggestions for the vocational teachers and even students.
There are many tips we can give, but in the interest of the time, I would say if we really want to effectively implement the vocational education, I would say 3 T's are very, very important. The first, most important is teachers. I feel teachers are at the heart of the vocational education. So we need to put a lot of emphasis on, skilling, reskilling or upskilling of vocational teachers, because they will be the one who will be the effective implementers of education programs. The second important fulcrum, I would focus on training, because vocational education is entirely a different set of education than the other general education. So we need practical training, hands-on training, real life exposure, and apprenticeship training. These are all very, very important. So the second T, I would focus mainly on the, if you really want to make vocational education useful and purposeful, you as a teacher has to ensure that students get adequate opportunities for practical training, hands-on training, and all such interventions and all that. And third, which is equally important, is technology. Because vocational education is also impacted with the development which are taking place in the technology. So if you really want to reach out to the student, particularly the student who are 21st century generation student, I think use of technology is very, very important. Now through technology, there are many solutions. There are many interesting ways vocational education can be made interesting, like simulations, gaming. So this will make entire, even now, AI is coming in a big way in the vocational education space. So all these things, if you can integrate like teachers, then training and technology, this is going to change the way we look at it, the conventional way we were looking at vocational education in the past. And this is the future of vocational education in 21st century.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us, for sharing all this information regarding course number 9, Vocational Education. Thank you to both our experts for joining us today. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you to all the viewers for watching this session, and we hope that you've got the answers of the questions you were looking for. And We'll come back tomorrow again at the same time, 5:30 p.m. with the same topic, course number 9, Hindi version of the same topic, which is व्यवसायिक शिक्षा. हमारे साथ जुड़ना बिल्कुल मत भूलिएगा और अपने सवाल तैयार रखिएगा और तब तक के लिए आप अपना बहुत बहुत ध्यान रखिएगा. हम आपसे कल फिर से मुलाकात करेंगे. नमस्कार.